Hello there, thank you for joining us on Nightline. The headlines. Police and military allowed to carry out checks on homes that breach SOP during Hari Raya Aidilfitri. Prosecution seeks contempt of court against Datuk Sri Najib. Good morning, I'm Azaria Tagaya. For the first time, the police and the armed forces will be allowed to enter and investigate homes when they conduct patrols during Hari Raya Aidilfitri. National Security Council Senior Minister for Security Cluster, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, said this is to ensure that the public adheres to the standard operating procedures of the Conditional Movement Control Order.
Pihak polis akan meronda di setiap kawasan. Dan jika didapati banyak kenderaan di luar rumah, mereka akan menyemak kediaman yang berkaitan dari segi jumlah yang berada di dalam rumah yang berkaitan. Jadi kalau banyak kereta, berkemungkinanlah ramai orang. Jadi pihak polis akan menyiasat lebih lagi berapa jumlah yang ada di dalam rumah tersebut.
He said the move was in order to determine the actual number of persons gathered in a house. Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri added that the patrols will be conducted on the first and second day of Hari Raya. The police have formed a special task force to identify individuals travelling interstate without police permission to celebrate Aidilfitri. Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Abdul Hamid Badur said the special task force, which will also involve the armed forces, has been tasked to carry out monitoring in residential areas and villages across the country. He said police have issued directives to all state police chiefs to act on the nationwide monitoring, adding that police have records of those who do have permits for interstate travel and those who don't. The IGP stressed that those who plan to travel interstate must have solid reasons and must seek permission from the police. Yesterday, Senior Minister for Security Cluster, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, revealed that the police had on Saturday caught 1,175 motorists attempting to return to their hometowns to celebrate Aidilfitri. They was subsequently asked to turn back at state borders. The minister had previously announced that the police could impose compounds on those who were caught travelling interstate without permission. Meanwhile, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri said police have started issuing compounds for those breaching the Standard Operating Procedure SOP of the Conditional Movement Control Order. He said 142 individuals were arrested on Monday for going against the conditional MCO and that legal action would follow suit.
Semalam, PDRM telah menahan 142 individu di atas kesalahan melanggar SOP, yang mana 124 individu telah direman, 3 individu dijamin polis dan 15 individu diberikan kompaun oleh polis. Bermakna mulai semalam, kompaun telah mula dikeluarkan oleh pihak polis.
In his daily media briefing, he added that continued breach of the SOP could see individuals being brought to court for the offence. Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri also reiterated that interstate travel was still not allowed except in special cases such as for work or in the case of an emergency. Police have so far ordered 308 drivers to turn back after they were found to be returning to Pulau Pinang for Hari Raya Aidilfitri and other invalid reasons. State Police Chief Datuk Sahabuddin Abdul Manan said 9 compound notices were also issued against those who violated the Conditional Movement Control Order MCO. Police in the state have set up 18 roadblocks at various entry points along the state border to intensify security into Pulau Pinang, which is now declared a COVID-19 green zone. Since May 4th, Pulau Pinang has approved 8,386 applications to travel into the state. Permissions are approved for purposes such as to visit their spouses once weekly or to travel interstate for work.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Apa khabar semua? Saya ingin mengingatkan 3 perkara untuk kita amalkan sebagai normal baru dalam kehidupan seharian kita. Pertama, amalkan penjarakan sosial. Pastikan jarak antara anda dan individu berdekatan adalah sekurang-kurangnya 1 meter. Kedua, keraplah membasuh tangan. Membasuh tangan dengan sabun ataupun gunakan hand sanitizer apabila kita berada di luar. Kurangkan menyentuh muka, terutamanya di kawasan mulut dan mata. Ketiga, pakai pelitup mulut dan hidung ataupun face mask apabila berada di tempat awam dan apabila mempunyai gejala demam, batuk dan sesama. Kuasa ada di tangan anda. Marilah bersama-sama pastikan Malaysia bergerak ke arah bebas COVID-19. Disiplin diri anda. Ikuti saranan Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia.
Athletes preparing for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics and Paralympics have been given the nod to undergo training during the current conditional MCO, albeit with strict standard operating procedures. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said a total of 265 individuals involved with the program, including 57 athletes, have been given leeway to train under the Road to Tokyo program.
KBS akan menggunakan pendekatan quarantine approach selama 30 hari tersebut, iaitu apabila mereka masuk ke pusat latihan, mereka tak boleh keluar lagi. Mereka seperti di kuarantin wajib lah. Masuk tu terus tinggal ke situ bersama dengan kumpulan mereka, tidak boleh keluar.
He added that the participants will also be swabbed again for COVID-19 before the end of the training session. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri stressed that all 265 individuals will not be allowed to be housed together, but will instead be spread across 3 central training camps. 181 individuals will be placed at the Bukit Jalil Sports Complex, 56 individuals at the Malaysia Badminton Academy at Bukit Kiara, and 28 individuals at the National Yacht Training Centre in Langkawi. Malaysia recorded 37 new COVID-19 cases on Tuesday with 1 new death. Health Director General Datuk Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah at his daily media briefing also announced 31 latest recoveries over the last 24 hours.
Daripada 37 kes baru yang dilaporkan, 2 kes adalah kes import yang mendapat jangkitan di luar negara. Manakala 35 kes adalah penularan tempatan, di mana 22 kes adalah bukan warga negara Malaysia.
The 114th fatality involved a Malaysian female aged 77 years old with a history of diabetes, high blood pressure and liver cancer. This brings the total number of cases to 6,978 and the death toll to 114, with only 1,218 cases still being treated in hospitals. 11 of them are being treated at the intensive care unit ICU, out of which 6 require ventilator support.
The second phase of the National Prihatin Aid BPN payout, which was scheduled to end last week, has been extended until Friday due to some technical constraints. Finance Minister Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz said 7.61 million recipients received payments amounting to 3.41 billion ringgit, representing 93% of the allocation for the second phase.
6 minggu perkongsian status pencapaian pakej prihatin ini, saya berharap keterbukaan kerajaan memberi keyakinan kepada orang ramai bahawa kerajaan amat komited dalam melindungi rakyat, menyokong perniagaan dan memperkukuh ekonomi.
As for the EPF's I-Lestari program, he said 3.9 million applications have been approved with total payments of 1.83 billion ringgit a month. On the wage subsidy, 2.24 billion ringgit has been approved for 267,752 employers, representing 2 million workers. On the SME soft loan funds, as of May 17th, applications approved by local banks and the SMEs was 5.8 billion ringgit, benefiting 14,075 SMEs. A total of 3.3 billion ringgit has been allocated by Bank Negara Malaysia under the Economic Stimulus Package 2020 to help small and medium enterprises, SMEs, sustain their business operations and employment, as well as boost domestic investment. Finance Minister Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz said the assistance is channeled through financial institutions comprising commercial banks, Islamic banks and development financial institutions regulated by BNM.
In a statement today, the Finance Minister said SMEs could apply online through the Business Financing Reference Platform. The financing includes a special assistance facility with an allocation of 2 billion ringgit to help ease the short-term cash flow of SMEs affected by COVID-19. Eligible SMEs can get up to 1 million ringgit in funding with a term of up to 5.5 years, including a 6-month repayment period. For agro-food, an allocation of 1 billion ringgit is provided to increase national food production for local consumption and export markets. For automation and digital facilities, an allocation of 300 million ringgit is provided to encourage SMEs to automate their processes and digitize their operations to increase productivity and efficiency. The Finance Minister said Bank Simpanan Nasional has also allocated 200 million ringgit in microcredit facilities. He said all financial institutions under BNM's regulatory authority also provided a special financing of up to 1 million ringgit without collateral under a special assistance facility to SMEs affected by COVID-19, as well as rescheduling and restructuring facilities for businesses.
Coming up, updates on major cases in Malaysian courts on Tuesday. Don't go anywhere. Back with us on Nightline. The prosecution said it would be seeking to initiate contempt of court proceedings against Datuk Seri Mohammad Najib Tun Razak over his reported remarks of hoping to get a fair trial in the One Malaysia Development Berhad 1MDB case. Lead prosecutor Datuk Seri Gopal Sri Ram on Tuesday raised the news report dated March 4th containing the former Prime Minister's comments on the 1MDB trial he is currently facing. Datuk Seri Najib's 1MDB trial returns to court for the first time after the implementation of the Movement Control Order MCO. The case had been put on hold since last November to give way for Datuk Seri Najib's other trials. In the trial, he's facing 4 charges of abusing his position to obtain bribes totaling 2.3 billion ringgit and 21 charges of money laundering involving 4.3 billion ringgit. Datuk Seri Gopal told the Kuala Lumpur High Court today that in the March 4th, 2020 news report, the accused said that with the fall of the government that ousted him, he now expects an atmosphere more conducive to a fair hearing. The lead prosecutor described it as a very serious allegation, meaning the court emanated an atmosphere of an unfair trial until the change of the government. Datuk Seri Gopal said the prosecution would be making a formal application before High Court Judge Colin Lawrence Sequeira as the remarks appear to involve the latter's court. The prosecution also today indicated that Datuk Seri Najib's stepson Riza Aziz could be a witness to give evidence against the former Prime Minister, which may prompt the prosecution to alter the witness list. Riza was recently given a discharge not amounting to an acquittal by the Kuala Lumpur Sessions Court over 5 counts of money laundering amounting to $248 million. In another development, the government has managed to recover over 600,000 ringgit from Riza after the Kuala Lumpur High Court allowed the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission MACC's application to forfeit the money, which was linked to 1MDB, from the Hollywood producer. Deputy Public Prosecutor Fatin Hadi Khairuddin during the proceedings told the court that Riza had agreed for the government to forfeit 537,000 ringgit, £2,700 and 2.87 million Sri Lanka rupees that was seized on May 17, 2018.
2018. She said this is after Riza was given a discharge not amounting to an acquittal deal at a different court recently. The statement on the agreement was read out in open court by Datuk Sri Gopal. In the statement, he said the accused had made several representations, and after the representations were considered carefully, several decisions had been reached. Under the terms agreed by both parties, he said the federal government will receive a substantial sum amounting to millions of ringgit.
Now, the trial of former Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Zahid Hamidi, who is facing charges of corruption, criminal breach of trust (CBT) and money laundering involving funds from Yayasan Akal Budi, will resume on June 15th.
The last proceeding of the case was on March 6th before Kuala Lumpur High Court Judge Colin Lawrence Sequeira and was supposed to continue on March 24th but had to be postponed following the enforcement of the Movement Control Order MCO. The case came up for management on Tuesday, during which Judge Sequeira set 30 days to continue the trial, which would end on September 30th. The prosecution is expected to call more than 50 witnesses. So far, 43 prosecution witnesses had testified. The 67-year-old Datuk Sri Zahid is facing 47 charges, with 12 of them involving criminal breach of trust, 8 for corruption and 27 for money laundering involving tens of millions of ringgit of funds belonging to Yayasan Akal Budi.
Keluh kesah rakyat berhubung isu elektrik ketika negara berdepan COVID-19. Saya akan merungkai segala persoalan anda.
Bersama Menteri Tenaga dan Sumber Asli Datuk Samsul Anwar Nasarah dan saya Azwaliza Azman, hanya di Eksklusif TV3.
Still to come on Nightline, 4 dead and scores injured after 5.0 magnitude quake strikes China. Details after the breather. Still on Nightline, the foreign news now. US President Donald Trump threatened on Monday to permanently halt funding for the World Health Organization and withdraw the United States from the United Nations Health Agency if it does not make substantive improvements in the next 30 days. The president, in a letter to WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, levied a series of allegations that the global health entity overlooked or ignored various warning signs about the COVID-19 outbreak and criticized its stance towards China during the pandemic.
The president's letter, which he tweeted late Monday night, raised more than a dozen specific instances where he argued the WHO had either missed warning signs of the COVID-19 outbreak or offered praise for China. He further stated that the WHO knew about a major public health concern in Wuhan by December 30th, 2019, which was also communicated by Taiwanese authorities, but the organization chose not to share any of this critical information with the rest of the world, probably for political reasons. The president wrote that the Trump administration is already in touch with the WHO about desired reforms, but he did not specify what those reforms would be. Earlier on Monday, the president attacked the WHO as a puppet of China and confirmed he is considering slashing or cancelling US support.
Statement. I think they've done a very sad job in the last period of time. And again, the United States pays them $450 million a year. China pays them $38 million a year. And they're a puppet of China. They're China-centric, to put it nicer, but they're a puppet of China.
The development comes after Trump temporarily halted funding to the organization in April. Singapore will lift its movement control order as planned on June 1st, with measures to be progressively lifted in 3 phases. Authorities announced on Tuesday that since the risk of a resurgence in community transmission remains high, the government will first resume economic activities that do not pose a high risk of transmission in the first phase. Singapore confirmed 451 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of cases in the country to 28,794. Over in China, a laboratory has been developing a drug it believes has the power to bring the COVID-19 pandemic to a halt. According to scientists at China's prestigious Peking University, the drug being tested could not only shorten the recovery time for those infected, but even offer short-term immunity from the virus. The outbreak first emerged in China late last year before spreading across the world, prompting an international race to find treatments and vaccines. COVID-19 cases in India reached 100,000 on Tuesday, matching the number of intensive care unit beds in the country, while the rate of growth of new infections showed little signs of slowing. The country reported 4,970 new cases over the past 24 hours, taking the total for the outbreak to 102,287, while deaths rose by 134 to 3,169. The number of cases in India has easily outstripped China, which has reported just under 83,000 cases, but has kept the daily rise in new infections to single digits for the past week. The United States on Monday recorded 759 new coronavirus deaths in the past 24 hours, marking a second day of decline. The figure at 8:30 p.m. local time is one of the lowest in recent weeks and follows 820 fatalities the day before. To date, there have been 90,309 fatalities linked to novel coronavirus in the US and more than 1.5 million cases of infection.
In China, 4 people were killed and another 24 injured when an earthquake shook Yunnan province. The Yunnan government said in a statement the shallow quake in Qiaojia County struck late on Monday evening. The quake hit near the city of Zaotong with a population of over 6 million and registered a 5.0 magnitude. Around 600 rescue workers were sent to the disaster area, consisting of 16 townships, including firefighters and soldiers from the local division of the People's Liberation Army. China is regularly hit by earthquakes, especially in its mountainous western and southwestern regions. Now let's take a look at the highlights in Malaysia's main newspapers for Wednesday, May 20th. Articles on the police and military to conduct patrols in residential areas during Aidilfitri to ensure compliance to standard operating procedures takes the front page of all 3 main newspapers, the New Straits Times, Harian Metro and Berita Harian, while the Malaysian Reserve features a special report on Malaysian retailers, which are expected to slash prices as the country slowly eases its movement control order. Do get your copies today or subscribe to the e-paper. And that is a wrap for Nightline this time around. Before we wrap, police in the eastern Indian city of Kolkata have evacuated residents living along the Hooghly River on Tuesday as one of the fiercest cyclones in decades barrels towards India and Bangladesh, with evacuation plans complicated by coronavirus precautions. Let's take a look at the visuals ahead of the super cyclone. I'm Azara Tagaya. Thank you for watching, and to all our Muslim viewers, Selamat Bersahur.
Sendiri kondisi kondisi